Calling all units, calling all units. Donut shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.
All right, we're back.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back. What's going on? We like to start with a toast, sir. Boom. Thank you.
Cheers.
Boom. Salute in our mugs. Welcome back, everybody, to the Donut Shop Podcast. Those of you listening in your car, in your ears, watching on YouTube, what's going on? It's me, Nick from Nick Off Duty. Got my boy.
And Justin from Davey.
And a very, very, very special guest. I've known him for years and years. But I'll let him introduce himself. Sir, you want to go ahead and give your credentials?
Yeah, I'm Delrish Moss, currently a captain with FIU.
Uh-huh.
Been around a while.
Been around a
while.
Yeah.
Was a major with the city and also chief in Ferguson.
That's right. So, proper etiquette, if you're in the know, I'm going to be addressing you as chief.
That's fine.
Because once you're chief, that's it.
Hey, people have called me a lot worse.
So, you've been around, you said.
Yeah.
What year did you start? Because this was interesting. We were talking about it before we started.
Yeah, I don't want to date myself, but I started in 1984 with the city. Brand new guy.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at some of the pictures recently. I looked 12, but it was a good start to a good career.
Yeah. So 1984. Not to put my age out there or anything, but I was 2.
Our age.
You were 2?
Yeah,
we were
both 2.
We were 2.
I like to tell people I'm the Doogie Howser of policing. So I was young too, very young.
Yeah, very young.
Really, they gave you a badge as an explorer.
Yeah.
There was no 18 years old minimum. It was way younger.
Yeah, way younger.
Yeah. They didn't have an explorer program. You just became a cop.
There you go.
There you
Put
go.
you in a car and go get him, kid.
That's a smart kid.
1984, different time in policing, especially moving forward to nowadays. What was your drive? What was that? 19? What were you doing before? Because you were like 14, 15, you said?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, before I started with the city, I worked 3 jobs. I was a party clown, believe it or not, on the weekends. I also worked for a place called Plaza de la Carnival over at the Omni, and I worked for McDonald's. Did all those jobs. I guess I did them pretty well, but the city also paid in the one job more than all 3 of those jobs put together. So it was an easy transition.
And the story, how we met or how you came into my life, you might not remember me, but I remember your story and what you said. And I guess now you're saying the city paid more, and this is how I can tie it in. I just graduated the academy. I'm sitting in, so after you graduate the academy, you sit in there's like a transition phase.
Yeah, post-orientation.
Post-orientation. You get to familiarize yourself with the agency. So people coming from different units, and you graced us with your presence one day. You were in PIO. But you said that there was a point in your career where you thought about maybe quitting because it was tough in the academy. I think it was academy or something. But you had your check in your pocket. Am I right?
Yeah.
And then you told us the hourly rate and everything. But you want to go ahead?
It's funny because at that time the city was paying a whopping salary of $25,000 a year, which was more than just about every other police agency in South Florida.
Wow.
And you got to think, when you put it into perspective, a postal worker at that time paid $19,000.
Yeah.
A school teacher paid $17,000. The state attorney's office paid $21,000, and they've got law school debt. Yeah. The public defender's office paid $1,000 a year more than them, and here I am making $25,000 a year. So I was, as I like to say, pissing in high cotton. It was good, and so that was always a motivator for me.
Yeah.
When you got down, when you got depressed, you remember why you're there and what the benefit is.
Yeah. You said, I believe you told us that you had a pay stub. You kept it in your pocket. When
we used to cash checks back then.
Yeah,
so
that was a thing. That was a thing. So you would glance down at it, bring it out and say, "Oh yeah," you know what I mean? I'm doing something.
And then you smile.
Yeah.
No matter how much they're yelling in your face, no matter how much they're making you run around and do push-ups and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
It was worth it in the end.
And that was what I heard.
I forgot about that.
Nah, that was what I heard. And that's something that and you were very approachable. I remember, even as you moved up through the ranks, never changed. Some people do.
Yeah.
When they get that little bit of authority, or they move up through the ranks, a little bit different.
Yeah.
You seem to be the same guy from the beginning until now, sitting here, where you're like, yeah, I'll go on. What do you need? What do you want?
Well, I think people I don't think they change.
Yeah.
I think what happens is you start to see more of who they are. It's when people are comfortable. If the guy is a real jerk to every person he comes into contact with on the street, he's probably going to be that way as a sergeant. And, it's always that whole talking up kind of thing. The higher I got in terms of rank, the more funny my jokes became, the better, people, perceived me. But it wasn't because I changed. It was because their perspective of me changed. Yeah. So it's more revealing than it is changing.
Yeah. I think you stayed status quo though.
Yeah.
Same guy looking down. You probably in the chief's office looking down in your pocket and say, "Oh yeah, I remember." I'm just kidding.
Now you got to go electronic.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. You got to go to a website and figure that out.
That's right. So you had a great career at I would say Miami Police Department. Retired as a chief. As a major, right? To move on to go to a chief. But let's talk about real quick that career. Start to finish.
Yeah.
What you had a long career, because people know you as PIO.
Yeah.
But you also did other avenues.
I spent outside of PIO. I spent most of my time in homicide.
That's correct.
As a homicide detective, and worked with some great guys.
Yeah.
At that time, Mike Gonzalez, who was a staple, had been in homicide since 1951.
Wow.
Did some 48, 50 years on the police department. So I got to learn from some really smart guys.
Awesome.
Who had done it all.
Yeah. And then you went over, and then you got into PIO, and then that was, what came out? Was it the entertaining the?
Well, no, PIO was a fluke. I was in a, when they started doing cultural diversity.
Yes.
I was in a class, and someone made the comment that they had lowered the standards for black people. And what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So you don't even know the history of the police department. So I talked about, in the class, I stood up and I talked about the first 5 starting on September 1st of 1944, and how they were the only ones who were actually trained at that time. And I talked about some of the impediments with regard to race in the department and how you had to sue to even get parity. And I went through that whole thing. Well, what I didn't know as I'm making this argument is one of the people sitting in the back was going to be the next chief of police. And so when he became chief, I got summoned to the chief's office and asked, did you ever think about becoming a spokesman for the department? Like, me?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Well, you should think about it. And also Bill Schwartz approached me and said, no, I really want you, because I'm taking over that office. I want you there. And I thought about it, and, we were a little persistent. And so I said, you know what, I'll make the switch. And I made the switch not knowing what to expect.
Yep.
And it was almost like, fasten your seatbelt, because it was like a turbocharged move for the career and just the things that you're involved in.
Yeah.
Working in PIO, you see at least a glimpse of all of the department.
Yes.
Rather than, just from this perspective, that perspective, and so forth. And you're making decisions, even at that level, because you're marrying this to what the opinion's going to be, what the feedback's going to be, that kind of thing. So you realize it's much more of a powerful position than you realialize without being powerful.
Yeah. Without you're the voice of the department. You're the mouth.
Voice and the face.
Yeah, and the face.
Yeah.
You help to mold the image
exactly
to the public.
Yeah, when it's the chief and you're that person.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's you. The chief's like, no, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that meets that threshold where like I have to go on and speak, but.
Yeah. And you're a voice of the department.
Yep.
But you're also kind of a voice of the community as well, because they start to have expectations of you. And one of the people I worked with in PIO, I learned so much from Angel Calzadilla.
Oh yes.
Angel and I not only worked together, we became like brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you think, because now it's the whole media and everything, how is it now as a PIO? Because back, I mean, with police work and the media, there seems to be a thing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you watch the media now and be like, man, I wonder if they're purposely spinning it a certain way, or is it, and I know you have a lot of media friends, and I'm not trying to put you in any kind of spotlight, but I'm just saying that if I look at it and I say, man, there's some kind of truth to both sides, but one is leaving out the entire story. No,
so I think one of the things that happens with media is we give them too much credit for knowing everything.
Yeah.
And because we give them that credit for knowing everything, we expect we expect a whole lot from them.
Yeah.
And you got to think, you just educated this guy. Now he's got to turn it around in a minute and 30-second package.
Okay.
And so when we say we're misquoted, we often over-educate. And so you got to break things down to sound bites and make it more precise so it can't be twisted. But the media has changed a great deal. Because when I started, we had 2 newspapers of note in the city. We had the Miami Herald and the Miami News. The Sun Sentinel came along a short time later. We had local television, which is where people consume got most of their information.
Right.
So it was vastly different. But because you had 2 newspapers, you had a check on the other. There wasn't this move to get it fast. There was much more of a move to get it first.
Okay.
And so, get it right. So that was. That made a difference, and now you got a lot younger reporters who are looking for that next big moment, and they're under pressure to get this stuff out right away because they got to beat social media, they got to beat the news media, they got other outlets and all this other stuff. So they get it wrong a lot more because they don't have time to fact check and recheck and double check.
Rushed.
You hit the nail on the head, and I was like, and I didn't think of that, but social media is where a lot of the stuff is breaking. So they're just like, well, it's already out. Let's just run it. And maybe but if we do the correct, check all the boxes, it'll be tomorrow. And tomorrow is like a year in like nowadays.
And then you got to look at some of the stories that became major stories that social media actually broke. The Trayvon Martin case happened 3 days before it took off, but it took off on social media. Interesting fact about Trayvon Martin: his grandfather, Ted Evans, was a retired City of Miami economic crimes detective. So his family kind of grew up in the Miami Police Department. But you look at the, what's the other case? The Michael Brown case in Ferguson. Social media actually got that to hit the eyes of the world. And so
I think even with the George Floyd,
George Floyd case,
it was on. I remember it popping up, and I don't like to look. I hate to look at when things are going wrong, and I'm just like, and I kind of watch a little bit, and I'm like, that sucks. But then I remember like a couple days later, it was like blowing up everywhere, all over the news.
All over the world.
Yeah, all over the world, exactly. And I guess, I have to take into account that social media is playing a huge role when it comes to...
You watch the news right now, and I don't know, my numbers are going to be off, but maybe 60% of the video feeds that you see when they're narrating the incidences are angles from citizens. From cell phones, vertical videos and stuff, that kind of stuff are all on it. So what they're doing is they're really catching up to try and give you the backstory of what you're seeing on social media. And it goes back to what you're saying, where sometimes those facts might be misconstrued, or they just can't get, because we know as PIOs what we're trying to give out. We have to give out the 100% facts as we know it at this time. When they can just talk to the neighbor, wearing a mask over their face, that's going to say what they saw, but they're not describing because they didn't see it all. So that's where we can all get mad. And then the unfortunate thing is that sometimes they can get misconstrued. And then we as PIOs really have to come out there and repaint the picture, and also try not to look like the bad guy that's saying, no, this person was lying. They're not lying. They just didn't see it all. And we did an investigation. And then
you have those people who they rush to the news. I'll never forget when Kim Morris was a reporter here. I would call her and say, why did you put that guy on? And she's like, look, it was crunch time. And he's the only one who would talk to me. But oftentimes those people had it very wrong. Because they didn't see anything. They just wanted to be on television.
It reminds me of like the movie Monsters, Inc., when just people are just talking about stuff, their cartoon characters. But and that is the scary thing when they have to do that. And that's the good thing about being a PIO, is building those relationships and the camaraderie with the reporters or with the news desk folks, so that you can actually call them and then they can trust you and believe you and stuff.
In fact, social media played so huge a role that a couple of years before we started the social media unit, I went to the then chief of police and said, look, 95% of people under 35 don't look at traditional media anymore. So we need to start a social media unit. I had no concept of how that was going to work or what it was going to be, but I knew we had to do it. And he said to me, that's ridiculous. And it was not because he wasn't smart or had foresight. It was a little long in the tooth, and it wasn't his reality. So it was kind of hard for him to understand. And then a couple of years later, we started a social media unit.
Yeah, look at that. And what that's the horse's mouth now.
Yeah.
We're breaking the news. Chief gives a statement. The news might chop up some bits and pieces. However, you can find the whole statement on the platforms.
Yeah.
And having a social media unit for an agency, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
You can't. I don't know how you can operate an agency now without having one.
Yeah.
Through crisis management and recruitment.
Yeah.
People have a budget of recruitment, and you can absorb that budget. You don't even need it.
Yeah.
If you have a good, strong social media following, you say, hey, by the way, we're hiring. Share.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Real good success on social media. Boca, with their Boca Viper hashtag many years ago. You talk about the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
It was through social media that they were able to get information out and receive information.
Yeah.
If you know how to wield it correctly,
Yes.
you can do wonders.
Yes, absolutely. I remember I went to, you guys were talking about a presentation that you saw, Chief Delrish, Chief Del. I went to a conference where the person who handled Boston bombing through social media, he gave a presentation on that and how he was just communicating through Twitter. And then there was a time where I believe the news helicopters were showing the SWAT team or somebody advancing on a house, and they tweeted at them, hey, by the way, you're putting our officers in jeopardy at this point. So I know that it's a double-edged sword with them because they're trying to get the story. At the same time, they got to be considerate to what we're doing, but it's the story. So
well, yeah, the thing to remember is they're not your PR people. They are the news media. They have a job to do.
Yeah.
In fact, while we talk about it, I talk about when I teach the PIO class, I talk about how important the media is.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the Constitution, the media is mentioned in the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't mention us until the Fourth, and even then it's telling us what we can't do
Yeah.
rather than what we can.
Uh-huh.
So you got to think the founding of this country was built on relying on media to get the information out so that we didn't have tyranny.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason why.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's no. What I said is what it is.
Exactly.
Where you're balancing checks. Are we ready?
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna take our first break. We take breaks here.
Awesome.
Even the conversation's phenomenal. We take breaks.
Good,
So
good.
we'll freshen up a little bit.
Okay,
We'll
good,
get our
good.
makeup.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Hey guys, are you hungry? If you are, head over to Big Slick's Deli, home of the famous Rugama cookies. Big Slick's Deli is located at 15455 West Dixie Highway in North Miami Beach. If you want delivery, they use Uber Eats and Grubhub. And officers, they've got you taken care of.
And we're back.
We're back. Yeah. So far, so good.
Yeah. And now that I'm fresh,
So, extensive police career, fulfilling police career, ended as a major, right?
Yeah.
At there, you did homicide, PIO, well known at PIO, and then you became the major over that entire unit, including community
relations.
community relations with PAL and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Heavily involved in PAL, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the PAL unit was actually, the entire career was rewarding, but PAL was actually, you got such good feedback, direct feedback from families who were impacted by the work you do. And in the city's PAL is probably, I'm a little partial, but it's got to be the best PAL out there because they do, not only do homework assistance, we had a robotics program, a dance, all of the sports, but we also had parenting classes and a host of other things. So it's not just picking up a football or just picking up a basketball in the afternoon. It's a well-rounded program.
So that PAL is an acronym for Police Athletic League.
Police
we have
Athletic
some
League. Yeah.
non-law enforcement that are aspiring to be police officers.
Yes.
Police Athletic League.
Yes.
So great program, and it does, like you say, it connects us to the community on another level that we can't get when we're actually responding to calls and stuff. So you're the major. That's what you were actually our major when the unit was incepted and we were there. We reported to you.
Yeah.
You were major, And then shortly after that, there was some incidents that went on across the nation, and it was serious, big critical incidents, right? The Mike Brown. Ferguson happens, and we're watching it. We're watching it live. And something that I always said, and you've been around police work longer than I have, and maybe it's nowadays, but I think South Florida, at least in the last, I've been almost now 15, coming on 15 years, 15 years is almost like a bubble compared to the rest of the nation. Yeah. Because I don't see like color. I see my best friend and my boy Bo, that I was his best man at his wedding, Joe, who teaches DT, and I don't see that color because I guess it's a mishmash of ethnic groups. You have people from all different walks of life in South Florida. However, I traveled out a little bit recently, and I visited some areas where it's very black, white. You know, and if you're Spanish, you need to figure out, there's a different, you're Mexican almost. I'm sorry, it's hard to say because Puerto Rican, I'm half Puerto Rican, so you just get So I don't know if South Florida is different. Maybe you could touch a little bit on that because you've been around the nation, around the world. Yeah.
So South Florida. So you go back to when I started.
Yeah, and that's a different time.
South Florida is the only city that had 3 major riots in a decade because of race. And it was long said that South Florida was not a melting pot. It was a salad bowl. Everything's in there, but it doesn't quite mix.
That's good.
And so South Florida's had its growing pains. But what put South Florida far ahead of the rest of the nation is that we went through those growing pains in the 80s when no one else was really going through that. L.A. didn't have their incident until 90 or 92, somewhere around there. And so what was happening in South Florida with the ethnic changes, Haitians coming into the country, Cubans from the Mario boat lift, and a host of those things, we were going through growing pains so much earlier, and we started to look at prescriptions to deal with that. That's kind of how community relations got started. Putting that together, having those community involvement specialists actually work with communities. So we were first to the game. So by the time things started happening much later, a lot of things that came out of here, they realized were prescriptions for what the rest of the country can do. And that's kind of how I ended up in Ferguson. I was one of the 58 people who applied and competed for the job. I was the only one who, lived where riots took place, then worked while riots were taking place, saw those growing pains, and even dealt with consent decrees that we had in the city, which Ferguson was now under. So I was uniquely qualified because of my life experiences here in Miami.
So did you see that happening and right away, like, I need to get over there? Or did you have like a thought process like...
So the first thing that happened, I was sitting in a chief's meeting, and to describe the chief's meeting, what happens is the chief has a meeting with his assistant chiefs, and there's a select few majors who answer directly to the chief. You're in that meeting. The police attorney is there, and one of the majors kind of mentioned through the Police Executive Research Forum that Ferguson's looking for a chief. Who'd want that job, right? Yeah. Kind of planted a seed. Yeah. Strangely enough. And it's kind of a reluctant thing because I thought about it, didn't think about it, thought about it. And I was due to retire in September. And we're talking about this was around October of the year before. Right. And I was sitting in my office one night, and I had gotten a host of calls from people saying, we think your resume is just what they need. And I'm getting calls from around the country. Chuck Wexler, the executive of the Police Executive Research Forum, a good friend of John Timoney, quite a few people. And so one night I'm sitting in the office, and it's still kind of there in the back of my head. And I'm thinking about the experiences in Miami and what's happening there. And I went to the computer, and I sat down, and I said, well, I'll never get this job. But I applied because it just wouldn't go away. Yeah. And I applied, and it started with a 26-page questionnaire, all essay answers. That narrowed it down from 58 to 16. And then I was in Texas for a concert. Yeah, I go to Texas for a concert. I was in Texas for a concert, awesome. And I got a call. You've been granted an interview. What I didn't know was it was 13 interviews.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was 3 a day. 4 a day for 3 days, and then it's kind of lightning round.
Yeah.
Because what happens is at the end of the day, you get a phone call at the hotel, and you're invited back the next day.
Okay.
And
Wow.
as we progressed, got it. The 13th interview was the one-on-one you got with the city manager, and only 4 of us got to that level.
Right. And it was you were on the stage, lights, cameras, action, and this is it. It's game time now.
Yeah, yeah.
So you think, obviously, the stuff that you went through early in your career in the riots and everything, you kind of already had a general idea of how you wanted to or were you more like, let me assess what's going on? Because demographics and like the way that the city was set up, it's, and I guess we spoke on break, went to a conference, and it's small.
Yeah.
It's very small.
Yeah.
Different, you had to maybe, and again, I'm going to let you speak on this, setting up the question, but work with those other agencies that are around. Okay, so just take me through what was your thought process?
So knowing what I wanted to do was kind of an advantage or the culmination of a lifetime of experiences.
Right.
I knew what happened in the city, but I've also gotten the opportunity to travel around the country. So I've been to the Midwest, I've been to the Northeast, I've been to the South, I've been all over the country and some other countries, and I make observations. And one of the things that I realized there was Ferguson was the very description of a 1970s police department. And, what was proof of that was that all of my command staff had been on 43 years or better when I arrived.
Wow.
This young upstart coming in.
Yeah.
But it was not just what I learned in police work, although it was that. It really had a lot to do with what I've seen from a life experience perspective. And so that kind of gave me an idea of if I was building a police department,
right.
What would I do? But secondly, if I was changing a police department, because I knew I'd be going into an environment of resistance, not resistance because it was necessarily negative, resistance because, 2 things policemen hate: change and things remaining the same. It
don't know what's good for us.
It was kind of that. So I knew it was going to be a heavy lift. I knew it was going to be a hard job, but I never thought for a minute I wasn't going to be capable of putting together a team to get it done. So
what was plan A?
Plan A was,
or like the first step in the plan.
Plan A was the introduction.
Yeah.
I always think that you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And so rather than the community meetings and all of those things, I went door to door. I knocked on every door in Ferguson and introduced myself as a police chief. It's you can do that in Ferguson. You can't do that in Miami.
Yeah.
But that idea was born out of the staff walks that we did in Miami, where we walked with the command staff of that particular area, and we provided services and a host of other things. I just modified the idea, and we did the walk. And that paid off dividends because you actually got to know people sitting down in their living rooms, and they didn't call you in times of crisis, which is usually when we run into people.
Right. Yeah.
So I knew that was going to be the first step. The first step was building a relationship with the community because, you know what, I always say it, we police at the pleasure of the people. And even the union, years ago with one of the unions, we were having an issue in Miami with regard to salary increases, and said, you know what, you can get salary increases. One, not by telling telling people what salary you make and what you aspire to, but certainly if you build relationships, then you get allies in the process. And so took that right into Ferguson, and that's really how we got it done. Now, of course, there was resistance. There were people who, I was the first black man to ever be chief there. They had an interim chief for a couple of months, Andre Anderson, very, very good guy, also black. But I'm really the first black man they've seen in that role in a place where that's not what they're accustomed to. So I knew that there would be challenges there. And I had one police officer even tell me, I just don't see myself working for a black man. And you know what? After that conversation, he didn't.
See you later. The door's right there.
Yeah, but I knew those challenges would be there. But part of it was the introduction, and the second part of it was, I kind of put together a plan, and I put it in my head and said, this is the prize. Kind of like looking at that paycheck. This is the prize. I don't know what road we're going to take to get there, but I know this is the goal.
Yeah.
When you know the goal, you can map out the destination.
Absolutely. And that's for everything.
Yeah.
And that's when you're the most successful, is when you have that goal.
Exactly.
You figure out how to get
Exactly.
there. So and you just touched on it just briefly, but winning, or not winning, but getting to know your residents in the community is one, a hurdle, and then turning and looking at what do I got? What am I working with? And what's happening here? Yeah. How is that? What's your feedback on that?
So the first thing I realized as I started to do an assessment of the department, because you got to go in and assess. You can't assume. Yeah. The first thing I realized was, one, they were stuck in a way of doing things because it was just the way that it's always been done. What happened in Ferguson was the world changed around it, and Ferguson changed around the governmental structure. You went from a city that was 99% white. Everyone had jobs around automobile manufacturing, to that changing and going away, and suddenly the city now is 70% black. Most of those blacks now who live there are renters, because in Ferguson it's not just black and white, it's renters versus owners, youth versus old. It's a host of things. And in the whole St. Louis region, they make a lot of determinations about you based on the high school you attended. I went to Miami High, so I was good.
Shout out to Miami High.
You go in and you make assessments, and I realized that it wasn't so much that everyone was. There were some people who were outright either racist or just grumpy or curmudgeon, whatever. But then there were some people who just didn't know better, and that was kind of. Those were the people we wanted to work with, because I could help you see a better way. And it went from we're afraid of the chief, we don't know who the chief is, to, hey, the chief's actually pretty cool. He's very specific about what he wants, and he wants it done that way. We can make that adjustment.
Can I ask, was there, because I know you came in as a chief, was there any officers that applied from out of state, or do you know, or out of town, that were like, man, I want to try to make a difference, even if it's at the officer level?
Well, that happened later. Yeah. And in large part, we went from, so when Ferguson happens, the average tenure of a police officer there was about 25 years. So it wasn't a police department that was accustomed to turnover, and it wasn't where people left. They liked working there. They liked their job. In the aftermath of the unrest, a number of things happened. You had officers who their bank accounts were hacked, their homes were trashed, and some guys left because if they didn't leave, their families, we're going to have a problem. Yeah. So you had that. Then you had other people who were like, 100 days of rioting, 100 days of civil unrest. Even in Miami, we had much more damage, much more an intense situation. 17 people dead in the 80 riots, a few $100 million in property damage, all those things. But they went on for 100 days or more. Yeah. And so you had guys who were also tired. And then you had guys who they weren't going to work for the new chief, and that was fine. So there were a lot of things happening that made change. It actually worked out, though, because I got to hire the lion's share of the department. And the more I went on television, the more I went to community meetings, the more I started to look around in the community, the more I found police officers who had not been given the opportunity. We built a playground. We did a community-built playground, and we brought in volunteers to do this. And this was like a community building thing. Right. I had police officers from St. Louis City come and volunteer their time in Ferguson. Oh, wow. And so I had a conversation. If you're volunteering in Ferguson, why aren't you working for Ferguson? And a lot of the black officers said, that was never an opportunity for us. You're not from here, chief, but that was never an opportunity for them. I ended up hiring most of those guys who came in to volunteer.
Nice.
So,
because were they local, or
they were
had
local.
They grown up in the area?
They were local. So St. Louis County has about 92 municipalities. Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, because you look at Miami, what is it, 37?
Yeah.
35, 37?
Broward's like 32.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was when I started, it was 27, but then new departments came on, Pinecrest and all these others. Yeah. But they had all these municipalities. You had Beverly Hills, who had probably 9 police officers. You had Calverton Park, which is right down the street, that probably had the chief worked the afternoon shift in patrol. Put it that way. That's how small they were.
Yeah. I think is under 7 square miles was Ferguson?
6.2.
6.2 square miles.
6.2, 23,000 people.
And what we were talking about in the conference, they were presented on Ferguson, and people were getting they had an out headlight. Right? They would leave work, and their work is 5, 6 miles, 10 miles away. They would get tickets through each.
If you drove up, oh God, I can't think of the street. If you drove across Hereford, you're going to pass within 3 miles. You're going to go through about 6 jurisdictions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you got a broken headlight,
Yeah.
you're going to be stopped in every single jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But then one of the things they did in Ferguson that I put a stop to immediately was stacking. You know, you stop a guy, and not having your registration in your car is a violation of more than one statute in Missouri. So instead of writing you for not having it, one of the statutes, pick a statute.
Yeah.
They wrote you for all 3.
Oh.
And then the issue was, so I had the jails and municipal courts right there in my building. You miss a payment, it doubles, it triples. As a matter of fact, if you read the Ferguson report, there's a lady who got a $40 ticket who ended up spending over $512,000.
Oh my
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say.
I'm sorry. $512, not $1,000.
I was gonna say,
I'm thinking about money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over
Yeah.
$512, and she still had another $200 to pay for that one ticket because of not being able to meet it. So you start to realize that a lot of people are poor and can't make these deadlines, and they're stuck.
Yeah.
And that doesn't create a good working relationship with the police department, because these are your citizens that you're writing.
Yeah, and you're tagging them.
Yeah, yeah. And I also started to realize something as I did rides with patrol, because I'd have you come and pick me up, and instead of being in the white shirt, I'd be in the light blue shirt with the silver badge as one of the police officers. I'd ride with you 2-man that day.
Yeah.
I also started to realize something. When white Ferguson residents got stopped and they got a ticket, what are you doing? I'm Ferguson.
Yeah.
And so I'm Ferguson had a different meaning.
Yeah.
So you realized also that it was the poor residents who were bearing the burden of a lot of the issues, and they realized that there was inequity in the treatment. So that was a problem.
Think it's racial, or you think tax, like money they get out from the ticket?
It's racial, but it's racial because of where your standing is, and so I'm not suggesting that the police officers were racist.
Right.
What I'm saying was that if you are not predisposed to a power structure, if you're not predisposed to being a member of that power class,
right,
then you can't get in. And so you bear the burden of whatever the issue is. And so the older Ferguson residents who said, I'm Ferguson, they were long-established Ferguson families who'd always been there.
I got you.
And everybody else was fair game because you're not Ferguson.
Yeah.
Yeah, travelers, visitors, or just like you said, renters, people that came from other cities.
I grew up here. I'm generational. These other people who came in. Handle them.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
And to a large degree, those people
tax them. They'll leave, and then we can keep in our prosperity of our mind and what we think it is.
Yeah.
But
Very
going with that,
interesting stuff.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a short break. We're gonna get back to it.
Okay.
All right. Be right back.
Be right back.
All right.
Oh, welcome back to another challenging episode of the Mug Puns. You've got 3 seconds to guess that pun.
Yeah, meet me right here, fool. I got a pound on me right now. Hey, you sure you're not a cop, man? You sound like a cop, eh? Oh, snap, man. I know you were la policía.
turn around. Put your hands on your head.
I swear, man, this is a setup. You caught me with all this weight. I say,
What are you, some kind of dealer?
I am, officers. And if you like that one, you should go to dollarchopodcast.com. You can get a lot more there, I say.
Okay. Thanks.
Officers, you forgot the beans.
Catch you on the next episode of Dumb Mug Puns.
If you're a winner in today's episode, please head over to donutshopodcast.com where you can collect your prize. All prizes to be paid for by today's winners.
And we're back.
And we're back. You beat me to it. All right. We were talking about Ferguson and some of the challenges you had, both internally and going out into the community and figuring stuff out. At one point, we mentioned how you hired some people from outside of the municipality, city. Is it the city or is
It's a city.
It's a city. Yeah. So it's outside the city. Come in. You came in from outside the city,
Yeah.
right? With the intentions of change and doing good and saying, man, I think I can help out. Then 100 days of protest.
Yeah.
I could imagine that there was some outside influence from not in the city. And just like the George Floyd case, that area where it happened is almost like a tourist destination now where people go and visit. They pay their respects. Was Ferguson like that? And did you have outside influence to any resistance from the outside?
Well, so what happened, basically what happened with Ferguson is everything that Ferguson was accused of was regional policing. So Ferguson was just like the guy caught holding the dice. Every other police department was doing the same things.
Right.
Probably much more egregious than Ferguson actually was. You did have outside influence with regard to a lot of the unrest because, again, it was fueled by social media. So people came from all over the place. You look at a person like Delroy McKitchens, who came from Baltimore, I think, and he was in Ferguson. So Ferguson became the center of the movement. As a matter of fact, while Black Lives Matter was born out of Trayvon Martin,
Right.
it got the wings in Ferguson because that became, the epicenter of everything that was going on in the nation. But when you peel back the layer of all that, you've got all of this influence from outside and all of these arguments outside, and Ferguson had some real hometown problems, and so there became kind of a dynamic even in the protest community of, we're talking about our lives, you're talking about theory,
Yeah.
and how that happened. So by the time I got there in 2014, a lot of the outside influence had died down, and Ferguson became more of a story than what was actually happening in Ferguson. So
Right.
just a real narrative and another narrative.
Right.
That kind of thing happened. Now, with regard to the police officers that I hired from outside, I hired police officers from outside, but all of them were from the region. A lot of them grew up right in Ferguson, but they were out, and they still lived in Ferguson. The reason they were police officers in other places was because in the background process in Ferguson, blacks got disqualified a lot more than whites, even if they were more qualified.
Yeah.
Because as I did the audit and went back and did the review, a lot of guys who got disqualified, I went back and offered them an opportunity to go through the process again. And that's how I was able to hire so many.
Yeah.
Some of the guys who had actually gotten on, when I looked at their files, I probably never would have hired them. So you had that dynamic. So one of the things you have to look at is the poison pill in the system, not so much the system itself, but individuals in the system who have a perception and they hire people who look and think like them, and they overlook things about them because he's like me.
Yeah.
So you had that
You
happen.
must be right.
And that's one of the reasons we were able to increase the standards, the polygraphs, the psychological testing. We were able to increase the standards, but yet we were able to hire at a faster pace and become much more diverse. By the time, when I started with Ferguson, we had 3 black officers. We had 3 female officers. By the time I left, we were about 50% black. And in a city that's 70% black.
Yeah.
And we were about a third female. So when you leveled the playing field,
Yeah.
you actually got a much more diverse pool of people.
Did a lot of the people that were there, did they leave, or did your budget increase due to grants?
No,
and
a
other things?
lot of people left. Again, the average tenure was 25 years.
Right.
And a lot of people left for a host of reasons. Some left because they decided to leave. Some left because I invited them to leave.
Oh, nice.
But people left.
Okay, one way or another, they left.
Yeah, and so for me, that was a good thing because I almost got an opportunity to rebuild it where, it takes about 5 years to change the culture of a police department, so it's a long, hard slog.
Yeah.
But when they're moving away at that pace and you're feeling at the pace, you can do it that much more quickly.
Yeah, and to go back, and it's not like I was saying you're hiring outside. When you were outside, you're from Miami.
I was outside.
Yeah, you're outside.
Nickname was East Coast.
But outside could be just going to that story with one headlight. You're getting 5 tickets in a 3-mile radius in a 3-mile road. Outside could be 500 feet in any direction.
Yeah.
So
and most of that was down West Florissant, which is a main thoroughfare that moves in less than less than 4 miles. You move through County, Jennings, Ferguson, Delwood, Ferguson again, Delwood again,
Wow.
Calverton Park, and so on.
And the stories are true. People would get multiple tickets from different agencies.
Multiple tickets from different agencies.
And I mean, if that's true, that's happening.
Put it this way: when I stopped the stacking,
Mm-hmm.
just one policy change. If you're going to write more than 3 tickets, you need to contact the supervisor and justify it. If you're going to write more than 3 tickets on a traffic stop, we noticed a $2.6 million revenue fall.
Yeah.
That one policy lost the city $2.6 million in traffic fines.
Wow.
I mean, if you're looking at a smaller municipality, they have to get their money from somewhere. And if it's small, there's only so many residents they can tax. So how else are you going to be pulling money to fund all this stuff?
Right. But the irony of it is that there's a law in Missouri that you can't, from fines and penalties, there's only a certain percentage of your budget you can get.
Yeah.
All of those departments, Ferguson wasn't even egregious. Ferguson, I think it was like 6% or something, like 6 or 7%. Ferguson was at like 15, 20. Other departments were 30, 40%.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Ferguson was a guy caught holding the dice, but what was happening there was in the region. But the irony of that is as we started to have successes in Ferguson, other agencies started to kind of follow suit with what was happening.
So, being that it's not humongous, right? You are taking on some of the problems that persist in or that are exist in other agencies that surround you, right?
Yeah.
So how is that working with other chiefs? Were they the 40-year veteran chiefs?
A lot of them were.
So how was that working?
Well, so what started to happen is we started having successes in Ferguson. Ferguson started actually getting heralded for the good work that was starting to happen there. We started having a better relationship with the community. But there were other reasons to protest, and there were protests in other areas. And what would happen is something happens in St. Louis, and you kind of protested in every city. It got to the point where the protesters came, said hi to the chief, and kind of hung out in Ferguson.
Yeah.
But they were destructive in other places. So other chiefs actually started saying, what is it you're doing?
Yeah.
And that, success has 1,000 fathers while failure is an orphan. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. The success started to make it work.
Nice. So, and that's all just like, I've seen this recipe before.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if this works here. I believe it should work here. If it worked on this large scale, why not?
Yeah.
I can apply the same things.
Yeah. And so even Miami, as big as we are in terms of a department, when you look at the commanders, each commander is really responsible for a neighborhood. Yeah. And he's like an area chief.
Yep.
So he's like equivalent to the Ferguson chief when you start to talk about the population that he's over.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I felt like. I felt like the city's commander.
Nice. So you go over there, you implement some things that you believe that are going to work, some strategies. You start changing some minds of the residents. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So they turned around. That you saw that what you were expecting.
Put it this way: the day I got there, they protested.
Yeah.
They protested the day I arrived. By the time I left, a lot of those people who protested, one, didn't want me to leave, and two, they still call me now. Just yesterday was my birthday, and
happy birthday.
Thank you. Ferguson residents were calling more than people in Miami, and I spent most of my life here.
Yeah, big impact.
Yeah, but you know what it was? It really was about they call community policing paper cop, and all this other stuff. But the truth is that you build relationships and it helps. As a homicide detective, if you can't talk to people, you're not going to get witnesses for your cases, so you're not going to solve anything. I don't care how much technology you've got.
It's true.
It's about relationships. I always think back to one day I stopped this guy, and his arms look like tree trunks, and he's decided he's not going.
Yeah.
And it's a minute before my backup can come. But the community knew me and said, no, we'll help you. And that's how I ended up in my car.
Hey.
So, you got to think about what you're doing as you do this job. Your job is to help. And if you build relationships, those people will come to help you when you need it. And that's what happened in Ferguson.
Awesome. So we're going to take a short break. Yeah. And when we come back, I want to talk about today's 2020 climate, what's going on. any considerations maybe that you had, seeing everything that's going on? You just weigh in a little bit on how agencies are dealing with things. And again, I go back to the South Florida bubble, and I guess before I got there, I was 2 when you were. But we had our growing pains too, and we didn't get to where we got just by a fluke. Right. It was a transition. However, I'm there after the transition, maybe a little bit early, but for sure now I'm just like, man, South Florida, I don't see none of this stuff going on. But then you go over to Ferguson, the 40-year guy that was maybe like small towns. There's still Fergusons out there. I believe still Fergusons out there.
There's still Fergusons in South Florida.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's coming from. He's got more in 411 than me. Sorry to burst your South Florida bubble, Nick. Boom. So we're gonna come back and then have you weigh in on some stuff.
Okay,
Chief.
What's up, everybody? Hey, it's Justin. Wanted to thank you. You guys have been huge. Blackout Coffee let us know that you've been killing it over there on our website. Thank you very much. They've even offered a new code for us. It's DSP20. That's going to get you 20% off your order. So DSP20 is going to grab you 20% your re-up of your coffee now that you're probably finished with that first bag. So go over to our website, donutshoppodcast.com, or hit up blackoutcoffee.com to get your 20% off with DSP20. Thanks. Now back to the show. And we're back.
Hey, we're back.
I was thinking about it on the break. How many officers does Ferguson have?
Ferguson's budgeted for 58.
Okay.
Where they are now, I'm not sure. By the time I left, we were at 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just mentioned you left. Segue.
Yeah.
So you decided coming back home, my job is done, or this is set a course. I got a machine going here. I'm good. I feel as though the community's good. Time to head home.
Yeah. Well, I came home because my mom got ill.
Okay.
And what a lot of people didn't know is I had lost some other relatives to illness going into Ferguson. So when she got sick, I wanted to be here to take care of her. So I decided to come home. Okay. And I thought I was going to be retired, but that retirement is nice. But when you're the only one not going to work, it gets a little boring. Yeah, so that's how I ended up at FIU.
So I was going to say Golden Panthers, right?
At Golden Panthers.
Don't they do that? There you go. The pause. So you're a captain at Golden Panthers, FIU, Florida International University.
Yes.
Yeah. So is it awkward sitting by the chief? You said some people still address you as chief.
It's only awkward when people come and address me as chief because he's the chief.
Yeah.
But the old adage is once a chief, always a chief. So people still refer to me as chief.
Yeah, I still call you chief.
Yeah.
I appreciate you here, chief.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
The only place I'm not called chief is at home.
So you come back home. You're home now. How are you looking back at you still in contact with Ferguson PD?
Yeah, pretty regular.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, several of the officers have come to visit me and hang out in South Florida. I don't know if it's because they like me or our weather.
South Florida.
But I get a call just about every day from someone there. Even the mayor just called me 2 days ago to have a conversation. And so I'm still in contact with people there. And after COVID, I plan to go back and visit.
All right. So you just mentioned it's in your blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And retirement can get boring.
Yeah.
So you're back. Looking at everything that's going on, it's almost like a deja vu, but times 10 because it's all over the nation, where you have chiefs resigning.
Yes.
All over the place for one reason or another.
Yes.
Either political or some things that are happening. Whatever. They're resigning. Do you have that similar? I mean, you did it. Mm-hmm. You did it once. You have that similar thought process? Any time it come in your head, they say, hey, and then you're at the meeting in FIU, and they're like, hey, can you believe they're hiring? Who wants that job? Well, here we go again.
Deja vu for sure.
It's not outside of the realm of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Ferguson, I never thought I'd apply for a police chief's job. I kind of move when something feels right.
Right.
And that applying for Ferguson seemed more mission-like than it did something I actually wanted to do. I was looking forward to retirement.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I know you remember, I used to have that countdown.
Yes.
But it's kind of one of those things, I think the nature of a policeman is when duty calls, you go.
Yes.
And Ferguson seemed like duty calling, and that may happen again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say that I won't take another job because then I take one and that I gotta eat those words. So
Yeah, because we'll post it.
Yeah.
We'll post it for sure.
What?
He said
We'll see what the future holds.
Okay, so with all that being said, any phone calls lately? Like, hey, what you doing?
Well, I've gotten since I've been back in South Florida, I've gotten 6 offers to be either chief or assistant chief in other places.
Local or across the nation?
Across the nation.
Oh.
One local, mostly across the nation.
Yeah.
But since I became Ferguson police chief, I've had 18 offers. So, I think it's good to be wanted.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
We could be talking to a future chief. How do you go up for the chief?
Two-time chief?
Two-time chief.
Is it like being a wrestler?
You
Like-
have the rings. You
I
have
know
the
a
rings.
few.
Yeah.
I know a few.
Yeah. So we got a lot of stuff going on now. 2020 is a bitch.
Yeah.
I say you don't have to say it, chief.
A bear.
Yeah. Within law enforcement, you got COVID, law enforcement, but it's just been a storm.
Yeah.
Where do you think? Because you've seen I keep saying it. I don't want to keep throwing you out there. But 1984, you've seen some growth.
Yeah.
Where do you think we have come from to where we need to go to where we're at right now? How far on that line do you think we are?
Yeah. So we look at today, and I think the storm you're in always seems worse than the storms you've been through.
Yeah.
But, I go back to the 1980s. You go to 61st Street and 13th Avenue, and the police officers took on rocks and bottles when they came in.
Yeah.
You get that on occasion now, but mostly it's a wayward tweet is what you're going to get. And so while we think it's worse now, there's been a lot of progress over the years. You look at police chiefs around the country. It's much more diverse pool of people, much more people at the table with ideas, and that's really what you need: representation of ideas. Because I used to say in Ferguson, if I'm the only one thinking, I'm giving away too many paychecks.
Yeah.
Because my idea is not always the best idea.
Yeah.
So you want that. But that's what's happening in police work. I think we're seeing many more people at the table with a wider range of ideas, people much smarter than myself, making good, solid decisions. And as a result of that, I think we've come a long way. Now, that doesn't say that we've reached the promised destination, but I think, the founding of America is always looking for a more perfect union. Yeah. We just got to keep working at it. Now, when we start to talk about, Ferguson, we say, it happened in that city, it doesn't happen in our city. Well, one of the things that happens is the social media informs what happens in your city. Yeah. So if it happens in Ferguson, they don't say the Ferguson police, they say the police.
The police, absolutely.
If it happens in Baltimore, they say the police.
Absolutely.
But I think all communities have that neighborhood that feels it's underserved, that's probably underserved, and that's where you got to do the most work, because that's a place that's a powder keg. We can't ever get too comfortable in thinking that we've gotten there. We've got to work at it day in and day out. And that's why building community trust, building community legitimacy is critical. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, think about it. Every day we go about enforcing the law and we go about managing to police a place. But the day that civil unrest breaks, suddenly it's chaotic, no matter how prepared that police department is. Yeah. Because it's outside of the norm. Yes. You got to work every day so that when you have those anomalous situations, you can go in with relationships and put those fires out. If the first time they see you is when you're coming to put those fires out, there's no trust, and you're not going to get any help.
Yeah. Almost like put a saving in a savings account.
Yeah, yeah.
For that one day that you need it, and you say, "Wait, I didn't deposit just today."
Yeah, I've been depositing
over the years, and I'm here to cash out.
Exactly.
You guys seen us.
Exactly.
You know us.
I want to make a withdrawal. Yeah.
This is an isolated event. We're working to get better. You know us. Do
you remember Major Art Washington?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, sir.
Well, during the riots in Miami, I don't remember which ones, but he's coming out of the station and he's getting ready to go somewhere. I said, where are you going? He says, I'm going to 17th Avenue and 62nd Street. I said, well, no. And then Major, you can't go there. Things are burning. He said, that's why I need to be there. Masterfully, that guy stood in the middle of the intersection and held court, talking to people.
Yeah.
And they listened. Because they knew him.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, man, this got to be the most powerful guy in the world.
Yeah.
Because I had not had the opportunity to witness all the work he put in before that moment.
Yeah.
We got to put in work before the moment.
So get out of the car.
Get out of the car.
And let's say there's some agencies that are listening that they don't have, maybe they're not at that community police, section where they have that yet. So talking to the street cop, what's some advice we can give to the guy who's like, man, I wish my department had the PAL and all that stuff.
Look,
Right. Yeah.
the PAL and all that stuff are great.
Yeah.
But community policing starts with you
Yeah.
as a patrol officer. It's the patrol officer that sparks these things that happen. It's not the police chief, even though he gets fired.
Yeah.
It's that guy on the midnight shift who's not able to talk to people because he doesn't talk to people. And God forbid, I see these guys now. You go by a police car, and this is what you see.
That's nowadays.
Get out in the world. Get out. Have a cup of coffee. Talk to people. Because later on, they're going to help you solve crime. They're going to warn you of things that happen, but they're also going to be your allies when things go bad. Every city gets their moment in the sun, whether that be good or bad.
Yeah.
When Miami happened in 1980, they never saw that coming.
Yeah.
We thought we were fine. In Ferguson, they thought they were fine. In Baltimore, they thought they were fine. So we've got to remember, we've got to build those relationships, and community relations starts with every single encounter. You
think they just weren't intertwined with their community, that they were so disconnected? Like, I thought I was good, because I want to tell you that I if it says I got caught with my pants down, I guess I got caught with my pants down recently.
Yeah.
But then there was some intel saying that some of these agitators were from outside.
Well,
and it was weird to me.
I want to say this about because there's another side, because we always talk about it from the police side.
Yeah.
There are people that I know in the city who get paid. They have nonprofit organizations, and their job is in the strife. So if things are calm, they're not making any money.
Right.
You're always going to have those people who take advantage of that opportunity. You're always going to have those outside people who come in and influence the situation.
Yeah.
But if you build a good relationship with your community, think back to the FTAA when some of those guys decided to run down, and the community said, no, you're not coming here.
Yeah.
You got to build it at home. That way when outside people come in, they don't have the influence of allies that they have that you don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be a flare up real quick of the outside.
But you can quickly.
And then the people that are there, that community, can put out that fire with you.
Yeah.
That's exactly. That's what happened recently, and that's exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. It was just an overwhelming, because social media. Yeah. So you got people that don't live in the city but local, in the same area code, but they're coming in. Yeah. You know why? Because it's on social media, and I want to go, and it's the right thing to do, and we do want justice for what happened over there. So we're going to express ourselves here. However, you had those bad apples come in, plug in. Then some people in the city were like, no, we don't play that. Burning police cars. No. We've come too far. Yeah. You need to take that shit elsewhere. Yeah. So
and when you have good relationships, they remind people that the police cars that you're burning, we pay for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just got to replace that.
Yeah.
So I think we got where the future. What's the future? And so you staying put? You're good where you're at now, or did we see?
I'm good where I am now. I'm loving FIU. Yeah. Actually, one of the things I've had the privilege to do at FIU is we started working on. I got tapped, along with El Panye Hudson and Dr. Valerie Patterson, to work on an equity action initiative. So in the aftermath of George Floyd, the president Mark Rosenberg came and said, I want to look at FIU, and I want to look at it widely, and I want to look at issues of systemic racism. I want to look at where we can improve, all those things, and just basically lay it bare. You guys got 30 days to put together a report.
And this is within the university, and not just
within the university.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, FIU has 60,000 students, so FIU is bigger than most cities. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in 30 days, we started and we consulted widely. talk to the community, people who do business with FIU, alumni, students, faculty, all over. And in 30 days, we asked for a 20-day extension. And at the end of 20 days, we put together a 206-page report. And with some pretty prescriptive things that are actionable. So that was actually a good opportunity to kind of do, I still kept my day job doing police work and working with some really good guys and gals. But I also got to work on that Equity Action Initiative, which is interesting because other agencies have now picked up on that report, and they're looking at themselves. And while George Floyd was a bad situation, one of the things that we do in every situation is we find ways to grow, and so everybody started to kind of examine themselves. And some good things have come on the tail end of that, because the future is that we're constantly evolving, and it's like a marriage. You may have bought flowers on Valentine's Day and everything else, but you got to work on that relationship constantly. You got to continually nurture it, or you're going to sleep on the couch.
Been there.
And so I think that's where what the future is. I think we're awake, and if we're listening and having conversations, we'll make the improvements that we need to make.
Where can somebody pick your brain? How can they find you? Is there an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter? How do we find you? They want to pick your brain, or you speak at conferences, not only teach PIO, but you talk on your experiences. How do I contact you? Please. Please.
I do all that. I don't even know what my Instagram is. I think it's...
we can put you up.
You
Twitter, all that stuff.
You can put it up. I got Twitter.
I'll Google you.
Twitter.
Yeah.
I got 2 Facebook pages.
Hey, now.
Instagram. The Delrish L. Moss.
Oh, yeah, you come up on Wikipedia.
You got a Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Hey, this guy got a Wikipedia. Man, all right, Chief, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but my Facebook page, Delrish L. Moss, is the public-facing one.
Okay.
I see it.
Twitter and Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
LinkedIn.
Hey, anything else? Anything else we got? No, but sir, thank you so much for coming on. I'm telling you, from the day I met you to today to when I sent you that text, and I'm like, I don't know if he's gonna say it. He's like,
you remember me?
Yeah. I had to send him the breakdancing video.
For a minute, I thought that was a swipe at my age.
That was foul.
To today sitting here, man, and thank you so much. I shot you the text. Shoot your shot. They say. It was like, yeah, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's good. Yeah. Hey, Justin, I sent a screenshot. Hey, Justin, we're getting Delrish Moss. He's like, no way. So it's cool.
Did you just go skydiving?
I went skydiving for my 50th birthday, so that picture's a little dated.
Oh, okay. I'm on his IG.
Part of the reason I posted that is for a friend who was talking about it, and I'm telling him, you don't have the guts.
Yeah. Look at me.
How was that skydiving?
Oh, it was great. Probably one of the most exhilarating things I've ever done in my life.
What got you up there?
I turned 50.
Oh, okay. Bucket list type of thing?
It was either a sports car or jump out of a plane.
Hey.
Jumping out of a plane was cheaper.
Yeah. The sports car, the cost lasts you a lot longer.
But yeah, no, it was probably one of the most freeing feelings I've ever felt in my life, because it's like, look, it's you up here, and enjoy this. Hope the landing goes well, because that's the most important part. But it was actually really exhilarating. It was great. As a matter of fact, when I landed, I wanted to go back up.
Oh my God!
2 years ago, I did the iFly thing that's not far down here.
I did that a couple
weeks
weeks ago.
The fake one that's low, that's on the ground, but it feels amazing, and that's what one of the notions that I guess with skydiving that you don't realize, because when you watch it on camera, you see the cameraman continue falling, so it looks like you're getting jerked up with the parachute.
Yeah, but it's
really not.
It's a glide. It's as a matter of fact, at one point, because you tandem, so there's the guys attached to you. And I said, "Oh, man, look at that!" While we're coming down, oh, look at that rainbow. He said, "You want to go through it?" I said, "Yeah."
You want to go through it?
Maneuvered, and we went through the rainbow. It was so cool, and looking down on birds.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know. That sounds like a nightmare to me. I'm not a heights dude,
Well, I was
one
of
do a
those
podcast
guys.
from here.
Yeah.
Well, I started. I'd repelled for charity for PAL. To raise money for the Police Athletic League.
Oh, I want to do that.
And so I started that, and then I started zip lining, and then it was just a natural progression.
Let me do this without the rope.
Yeah.
Forget the rope.
Oh my goodness, I can't. I get nervous. I get to stand on top of this table and look down. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's something that. Okay, if a plane's going down, and like, hey, you want to go down a plane, or you're gonna jump out? Okay, I'll jump out.
Yeah. Speaking of planes going down, why do they give you oxygen when the plane's going down?
I don't know. I'd rather pass out.
If you watch Fight Club, it's to calm you down. The more oxygen that you have, I mean, this is the movie.
No, you want to calm me down?
Yeah.
Put Demerol in there.
Yeah. Nitrous oxide is a laughing gas.
We're going down, man.
And I'm happy about it.
Are you getting the same stuff?
And I'm happy about it. Oh shit, well, that's funny. Andy, we good?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Sir, it's been an honor to have you sitting there.
Awesome.
We invite you to come back. That mug is yours for the keeping.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll
So
check.
Calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.